Welcome everyone to episode 5 of the Game Hunter. This is a special episode for me because we are focusing entirely on the Sega Dreamcast. It is my one console that I am trying to search out everything for that I can get that was released in North America, and it's easily one of my favorite consoles, if not the favorite console I have in my entire collection. I'm going to give you some tips on what to look for, some highlights of games you might not know about, other things that you can find, and good prices to look for items and where to find them. So let's start with a few of the classic games on the Dreamcast. These are the games that you will want to buy just because you have the Dreamcast. Alright, there are actually tons of good Dreamcast games. I just have a few of them here I'm going to show you. Skies of Arcadia was also released on the GameCube. This started on the Dreamcast. Fantastic RPG. A classic of the whole system would be Shenmue. Started on the Dreamcast. Easy to come by. Really good game. Buy this one if you have a Dreamcast. Another really classic game you don't really hear too much about is Samba de Amigo. Now this one actually came with different Maraca controllers as a peripheral to use to play the game. You can play it without them, but it's still a very fun, very unique game. Definitely a classic and a must-have on the console. You have the two Sonic Adventure games, 1 and 2 here. Again, it's Sonic, it's Sega, you have to have them. If you have a Dreamcast, these should be the first 2 games you get. And honestly, Sonic Adventure 2 is one of the best in the whole system in my opinion. Another duo, we have both versions of Phantasy Star online. Essentially the same game, version 2 just fixed some bugs, added some extra stuff. Can no longer play online, but again, they are classics, one of the first games that you could actually play online on a console. Still very fun, and actually a sequel is coming out, hopefully this year in 2013. I touched on this in a different written review before, but Power Stone 1 and 2 on the Dreamcast, also released on the PSP. Great fighting games, super good, a solid Capcom release, very, very fun. I highly recommend that one. The House of the Dead 2, one of the best shooting series in the entire industry. House of the Dead is so fun, so over the top. House of the Dead 2 is only on the Dreamcast. It got re-released later. Still very fun. Kind of hard to find, but you can get it. Another classic series started here on the Dreamcast. We got Crazy Taxi 1 and 2. Not my favorite games, but these are games that when people think of the Dreamcast, they will think of these ones. So all of these games, and there's many other ones, those are fantastic ones to look out for. If you see them and you're starting your collection, that's a great way to get some quality titles in your collection early. Personally, one of my big draws to the Dreamcast was the amount of fantastic Capcom fighting games. Now, you all know Capcom if you know fighters. Street Fighter, that's their series. It was arguably the best series released on the Dreamcast. Super good. But for my money, the best series that was released on the Dreamcast through Capcom is Marvel vs. Capcom 1 and 2. The Dreamcast ports are the best ports they made, super high quality, arcade perfect, easily some of the best games on the console, and if you can find those games, or the second one especially is a little bit more expensive, that is a highlight. You will not be unfortunate if you find that. It is such a good game. Going off of that, we have both the Street Fighter 3 games, Double Impact and especially Third Strike. Double Impact is actually 2 games in one. You get Street Fighter 3, New Generation, and the update Double Impact, which added a few new characters. This one's a bit harder to find, a little bit more expensive, and then Third Strike is the go-to game. Like, Third Strike is one of the best street fighting games. It's my favorite. It is my best game in the series. Personally, this is a great Dreamcast title. Only released here. It got re-released as part of the Anniversary Collection, I think, on the PS2, but still, solid game. That is a Dreamcast gem. If you can find that, you need to buy it. It is super good. And then don't forget about Alpha 3. This was released on the Dreamcast as well as the PlayStation. Of course, it got re-released a bajillion times. It's Capcom. But the Dreamcast port, like Street Fighter and Marvel vs. Capcom, they are the best ones. It's the best version you can get on any one disc. Outside of that, there are other really solid fighting games. I only have a few here to show you, but the Last Blade 2, very unique fighting game, totally different style than Street Fighter. A bit more expensive, it's a more premium game, but this is a solid game. If you find it and it's cheap, under 40 bucks, this is a good buy. Really a good classic game to have for your console. Now, I don't know if you like Mortal Kombat 4, but the 3D fighting in Mortal Kombat 4 translated as to on Mortal Kombat Gold for the Dreamcast. It's a special edition. It's only released on the Dreamcast. It features 4 new characters. I think it's Baraka, Melina, and Cyrex and Sector or something like that. Still, though, I think Mortal Kombat 4 is great. This is a solid game again, and for whatever reason, only on the Dreamcast. Very good port. Easily the best port of 4 because it has those extra characters. And then lastly, the classic game, some of the perfect gameplay you can find in any fighting game, Soul Calibur. Started on the Dreamcast. You know, Soul Calibur 3, 4, and 5 are out now. This is one of the best ones. Arcade perfect port, fantastic graphics, super solid gameplay. Still fun to play today. This is a great game. If you find this one, and it's pretty cheap, you can get it for probably under 10 bucks. Another great game to have on your console. As I said at the beginning of the video, the Dreamcast is one of my favorite consoles, and it's because they have quality games on them, like the ones I mentioned before, and they have just fun games. Some of those games are really fun, but there's some crazy ones like Dynamite Cop. This game is super crazy. It is a fun beat 'em up. I mean, you kill people with like brooms and fish. I mean, it's so fun. It doesn't lose the idea that it is a game and you're meant to have fun. And I love that. There's lots of those other games on the Dreamcast. There's even more solid RPGs. Record of Lodoss War is really great. There's weird adventure games, all kinds of stuff. Sega didn't really leave in any stops. It was all there to do whatever you wanted. Developers made a lot of fun stuff. Also, going off that, we have Quake 3 Arena, which is a unique game. It's a multiplayer-only game, sort of. Lots of first-person battles and killings. And then we have The Typing of the Dead, which is a remake of House of the Dead 2, which you saw, but it's typing, so you use actually a keyboard, which is another interesting thing about the Dreamcast. It has a ton of crazy peripherals for it. Now, of course, you have the light gun for the House of the Dead, but you've also got the keyboard here for the Typing of the Dead. Strangely enough, you can actually use this in conjunction with the official Dreamcast mouse on Quake 3 Arena, which is why I have that one. This is ridiculous. Like, they made a keyboard for a console, and yeah, the Dreamcast is online, so this is convenient, but they actually used it in some games. I mean, the Typing of the Dead is a crazy game. It is so fun. Like, if you get that game, that is a solid game on the Dreamcast. Really, really fun, really wacky, and that's part of the reason why I like the whole system. And another interesting thing, the visual memory units, the VMUs, these are the memory cards for the system. They fit into the controllers. You can get 2 in there, and as you can see, it has a little control pad and buttons with an LCD screen. Now, for the most part, this wasn't implemented as well as it could have been. Some games you could actually play little games on here to impact the actual game on the Dreamcast. But for the most part, when you plopped a game in, like let's say Shenmue, it would say on here, you know, Shenmue, or it would show an item or something like that. And it was kind of neat. It was a neat aspect that they added. And these are relatively cheap. You can find the VMUs as cheap as the controllers, so it's not bad. A few things I don't have, but I'm still looking for. There is a fishing reel controller for the Sega Marine and Bass fishing games. You actually have a crank and reel that you can use it to reel in the fish. There is also the game Seaman, which is another classic for the Dreamcast, which I'm still looking for complete. It came with a special microphone, and you would talk to the Seaman creature, and I guess you would just say things to it, and he would respond. Kind of like Hey You Pikachu on the N64. Not too far off that, but the Seaman game is a bit more mature over Pikachu's game. And again, very unique, lots of cool stuff. Don't forget about the maracas for Samba de Amigo. Those are actually really hard to find, but super fun. And it's not really cluttered because the games that you get for them are really fun. They use that very, very well, and that's really, really cool. The last few things to keep in mind when you're collecting for the Dreamcast, there are actually some promo discs that people like to go after. I have 2 here. These are the generators. They're just a whole bunch of demos. I think they came with magazines. Maybe they were given away at store kiosks, but you can find these. If you want to collect them, you can. Then you also have your web browsers and things like that from the Dreamcast magazine. I have a few of them here. I really don't collect these. I got them just through chance. But if you want them, they're out there. People like to buy those. There's also the web browser itself. There is a physical release of that. It came in, I think, a version 1.0 and a 2.0. There could be even a 3.0 or something. But you can look for those. They're unique. Unfortunately, it's not online anymore, but you can collect that. And my favorite aspect of the Dreamcast is that, yes, it is region locked, but it's very easy to import and play Dreamcast games from Japan or other regions. And the reason this is good is that Japan has a crazy amount of great games for the Dreamcast. I was very fortunate to be able to visit Japan, and I picked up my favorite game on the console. It's Capcom vs. SNK 2. Now, you need a special boot disc to use this because the American version is region locked, like I said, but this is one of the best fighting games I've ever played. Super nice, and I can play it on my Dreamcast. And I highlight this one because it's one of my favorites, but there are plenty of other games that you can get. Ikaruga stands out as a really good one. That was released on the Dreamcast for the GameCube. Really good game. There's plenty of other unique RPGs, shooting games, other titles that you can find in Japan, and you can play them on yours with that boot disc. It's easy to find how to do it, or you can buy a Dreamcast from Japan online and do it that way. But I bring it up because Japan has a great collection, great collection of Dreamcast games that make the system even better, and the fact that you can play them is great. Now, the very last thing I'm going to show you is actually one of the gems of my Dreamcast collection. I love it. It is the Japanese-only version of Sonic's 10th anniversary. This is a Sonic Adventure 2 game. It has a lot of extra features in it. It comes with a music CD and a art book, I want to say, and a whole bunch of different stuff. It was only on sale apparently for 2 days in Japan to celebrate Sonic's birthday, so it's a bit more unique. Strangely, it's not hard to find. You could probably get it for about $50, but this is a cool thing to have. It's I mean, it's an anniversary collection. It's really neat. So that's pretty cool. I like to highlight it because I think it looks neat. It's very, very fun. So as you can see, there's plenty of stuff to collect for the Dreamcast. Now, sadly, there are a few things that I don't have for the system. Like I said before, I don't have Seaman. That is a classic game. I don't have it. There's actually the rarest game is Sonic Adventure Limited Edition. It was only released as a store demo or something like that. It's very hard to find. The only real difference on the cover, you can tell it looks like Sonic Adventure, but it says Limited Edition. That is a solid find, the hardest game to find for the system in America. I also don't have a few of the classic Capcom games, like I'm missing Cannon Spike and Project Justice. I don't have those two. Those would be good ones to have, but there's always good things to find. And if you can go to a used game store, they probably have some Dreamcast games available. I mean, get them all. Like, if you're going to collect and you want all of them, just buy them when you can, because it's getting to the point where the Dreamcast is going to be gone, and you're not going to find it at all unless you buy online or go to a trade show or something like that. So, I've been having a lot of fun collecting for the Dreamcast. Sega put out a fantastic system that was, in my mind, ahead of its time. Plenty of cool stuff for it. You can find whatever you like is on that system. And like I said, it's one of my favorite consoles because of all the fun and quality games they have for it. Okay, I hope you guys learned something about the Sega Dreamcast and collecting. If you guys have any questions about the Dreamcast, want to see more of my collection, or you want to see a different video, something more like this, let me know and I can get that going up as soon as I can. Otherwise, check out Slick Gaming for more news, reviews, game collecting tips, all kinds of stuff, and the Slick Anthology link on there as well to see my game collection as I'm updating it live. Alright guys, I will see you next time, and as always, take care.